presentation is this type of gender dynamics and societal dimensions of mental labor. This mental, we were discussing a lot about it. It's brings us back maybe to some early 20th century mentalism and stuff. But actually, it turned out to be a really relevant concept for us. So I'll first start from some assumptions that I think are primarily epistemologically and conceptually may be relevant, even though a lot of ontological discussion, especially regarding sexual difference, was going on, but it's not possible to present it all. So, gender, as a term for me here, is a system of social practices that creates and maintains gender distinctions and organizes relations of inequality based on them. As a good sociological disciple, I take micro, meso, and macro levels. So, in the sense that gender is also a feature of bodies and language and mind, but also, regardless of that, all the way, it is a feature and characteristic of interactions. And then also gender is institutions and in institutions. So this multi-level connectivity and simultaneity of gender production network is very relevant and is seen as at work here. This research that I will present, so sorry, it's so much different from all the interesting theoretically based things I've been listening from you for the last several days. This is one survey, and then this assumption is quite relevant, and there are justified reasons for this, but the sample are individuals in heterosexual relationships who have kids. I'll explain when I come to this concept. Very relevant in terms of this background, contextual and theoretical, is this deep awareness that now and historically, gender relations and then work-home relations cannot be thought about separately. And then, of course, because this is such a, always for me, a sensitive topic, in private lives are also a matter of research here. That's why this auto-reflection is constantly very present and immensely relevant for me. And this auto-reflection, on the one hand, consists of trying to avoid the reification of the studied subject. And then, on the other hand, the politics of applied methodology, especially regarding, the fact that sociology is an empirical science, and that, once I address the distinctions I talk about, I hope I won't be reproducing them in all the undesired dimensions. Okay, so this mental burden, it's not only that women carry it and have it, but it's statistically predominant, it predominantly burdens women, and especially employed mothers, and that's why this assumption is also here. Now about the concept. What is it? Mental work, mental labor. This topic is about gender equality or inequality in the private sphere. And I chose some images from the feminist comic book Mental Load, published by Murder Books 2018. And then several maybe jokes that I hoped would point to this concept in this maybe light-hearted way at the very beginning. And this is the joke when, and it's not only a joke, there are in my family real experiences like this. Please go and buy the salad. Okay, and so my brother came back. At the market, the lady asked him, how much salad do you need? He said, I don't know, she didn't say how much salad, and so he said, I think 2 kilos will be okay. And so he came home with, I guess there were 10 full bags of this green salad. Another one is the typical, go to the store and buy some eggs. If there are strawberries, bring 2 packs, and then he returns with, nothing if there were no strawberries or two bags of eggs. And all sorts of jokes. For example, if a man tells you he'll fix it eventually. You don't need to remind him every 6 months. So I was hoping that this maybe and maybe finding good examples would help me to introduce what is meant by this, but there are also really relevant methodological reasons for introducing this dimension. Ksenia Klasnic is the leader of these two projects. These are University of Zagreb funded projects. The first was construction evaluation of household mental labor scale, and the other one was effect of household mental labor on quality of life of employed mothers. In the meantime, very recently, the third one, we also received some funding, and we'll look into digital aspects and the influence the quality of life of employed mothers. Now, the jokes are jokes, but when it comes to housework, sociological literature differentiates physical, emotional, and cognitive. Physical refers to repetitive tasks related to household and childcare, and this is the most researched type of household work. And then emotional, it's also quite present for some time already with Lara Hochschild and her studies on emotional labor and emotional work of women, although this aspect was mostly researched in terms of all the jobs and activities like hospitality or flight assistance, waiting on tables. So all the situations in which you need to put a lot of emotional work in order to make the situation as expected. But then also at home, feelings of care and responsibility for many family members. And the other side, all the emotional impact, quite long-lasting and not readily visible, that this emotional labor exerts. And then this cognitive, which is usually the type of work like management work of planning and organizing, thinking ahead, knowing everything that's needed around the house. It's usually when it's paid labor force, it's always the most expensive type of labor. In the household, it's barely recognized. And this is where we wanted to situate our research focus in this project, especially because in all the Croatian statistical reports, but also European, the typical measure and indicator and tool to see how unequal distribution of housework is and how gendered is the amount of money the person spends in a day or in a week. So women spend, I don't know, 3 hours a day, and maybe a man spends 3 hours a week. And it's very disproportionate throughout Europe. However, if you measure the time one needs, to go to the shop and buy the groceries and come back, or to do the dishes, or to do the cooking, at least the same amount of money, if not even greater, is needed, to plan what should be on the shopping list, and of course, if the detergent is out, etc., and if all the groceries you need for the lunch that day. So all the organization and so this emotional aspect, referring to the impact of household chores and these predicting needs, recognizing the options, making decisions, and monitoring progress, is something we combined in this mental labor concept. And their terminology appears in literature. You can see it here: household management, cognitive labor, invisible labor, this generalized notion, mental labor, work or mental load. So to repeat, this mental work is for us a combination of cognitive work of family life and the emotional work associated with this work, including feelings of care and responsibility for family members, but also the emotional impact of this work. But what turned out, so it's, you can see, you cannot see, it's very small, sorry. There are some indicators referring to mental load in this little colorful cloud, but to elucidate characteristics that are found to be very relevant are that mental load is invisible, boundless, no boundaries, and very enduring, long-lasting. Okay, and due to its characteristics, as I have already mentioned, it's difficult to measure, especially quantitatively, to measure it in the same way as the physical labor, and without measuring it, without becoming aware of it, gender inequality in the private sphere is heavily misrepresented, I would say. So here are some dimensions. It's a long story. I try to exert some things like, for example, all the psychological, behavioral, sleep quality, health, all these, like this multitasking, this time fragmentation, this blazed existence of women is also not very much visible and is usually addressed in individualized and compartmentalized ways. And our assumption is that it's very important to connect it to this aspect of organizing life too. So mental load, invisible, diffuse, abstract, and burdensome, very much visible in some aspects like the so-called economy of gratitude. When you think about who says thank you when somebody does something and when it's implied or taken for granted, usually compared to all the background processes in a computer, like she just, she's sitting and doing nothing, but actually all the so-called idle processes, so much is going on and needs to take place in order for these visible aspects that you can temporarily measure can happen. And because of this, the worker never feels the satisfaction when his job is done. And another metaphor is like a conveyor belt, but you cannot turn it off. And then this frequent feeling of exhaustion that women frequently talk about during interviews. Thank you. So there are, of course, now I'm talking about this mental load or mental labor in this homogenized way, okay? Of course, there are different aspects and there are components of this mental labor. And in this research, we will look into these layers. I did not go into them for this because it's too huge. I can see it's 10 to 10 already. But there is variation in flexibility, frequency, and the burden. What is typical that when we look at literature, something that this research into mental labor will probably also kind of make layered or help make layered, is that a typical view that, if you set the agenda, if you're the one who controls what will be done, etc., then you're in the position of power. Well, here actually it's not like that, even though it's all your control. And somehow you're the boss, telling all other family members what needs to be done. And, even if they clean, maybe it's not good enough. It's actually just not clean. And the mother is typically, statistically, you'll see the data later, the one who has this control and who's the judge of it. So here it's actually misplaced to see this power as universally defined like this. And definitely it's heavily gendered, and I guess it cannot be explained without the notion of gender, and gender emerges as a strong factor in the distribution of mental labor. Okay, you'll see okay, so this is maybe because I do not know how to go through all the things very quickly, maybe it's a good idea that you just take a look. There were 1,000 people in this sample of ours. It's a very big sample for Croatian society. It's nationally representative. Okay, there is a little bit more women than men, but it's all very balanced. It's okay. And it's all all people in the sample are partners, married or in extramarital cohabitation with kids. Okay, because this was our focus, this was on purpose, purposely selected this way. Very religious sample, but I guess when you have a nationally representative sample, that's of course expected. And we had this, first we had conceptual mapping and we did focus group studies. We had this national survey and we have also now semi-structured qualitative interviews. Here I will present some data from this survey. And then later, I just couldn't resist to give you several quotes from the interviews, but they are not yet finished. We are now in the process of coding them. Results. Okay, there were 74 measured activities, and the response scale was neither me nor partner, only me, more me, equally me and partner, more my partner, and only my partner. And what we did is we made a sum of responses 1 and 2 by gender. And we also looked at the difference in sum by gender. I'm so sorry for this math. And then we thought, for example, writing birthday cards or Christmas cards, or remembering there's a birthday in the family. So solely and mostly me, if it's, for example, in this case, it's 54.9%, and 11.3 for men. Then there is 43% difference, and greater than 20% was already considered in this study of ours as significant statistically. So we consider this activity a female task. Okay. It's terrible. I don't usually do quantitative, but trust me, it's quite important to do it for the legitimacy of the voices, because we want to address also the government, and we also want to, this to be introduced in how we gather gender desegregated data in general. So, okay, so there's a lot, but I decided, I was thinking, should I include this or not? But then we spent so much time thinking about all these dimensions, all the concepts or the statements that we could include. So to honor that, I included this, and maybe to give you a chance to see what are these activities that we somehow tried to operationalize several dimensions of this concept of mental labor. And then you see, when the bedding needs to be changed, I guess the sheets get to be changed much more frequently by women than men. Or whether red goes with the whites, and when you wash, or how to effectively clean, or what are we going to cook today? I don't know, I'm not hungry yet. And so this awareness when you need to start cooking, and etc. What needs to be packed for a family trip? An amazing, a little gender, I would say, ethnography of care for the family is in this process of packing your bag. When you go with a kid to the park and when you plan a family trip. So, but somehow, because this is quantitative, which is really good in one way and really limiting in the other, but this is all we thought about, and then try to put it in statements. Okay, women mostly care about cleanliness, food, emotional needs, and social activities. So you can see the difference here is very big, almost reaching 60% for some of the activities. Time is flying, so I will not read them, especially in some. We can look at it. It's not too small. Oh, it's not. It's okay. It's okay. No, great. Yeah. I was joking yesterday that, it's late May, and my husband keeps asking me, what time is his French in Alliance? Like, it's the same day and time since September, but it's just, that's this habit, you know, when do we start? When do we do? Out of 74 activities, 7 of them were considered typically male. You can see that it's a guest service, registration, filling the tank, repairing some items, very stereotypical, nothing surprising, or calling the craftsman. That's I will send it to us. And then there are 14 considered equal. This was really interesting for us, like maybe some bigger spending. Okay, we have to decide it together, or maybe taking out the trash turns out to be surprisingly equal. Or then planning a date, shall we go for a dinner, the two of us, and where this turns out to be jointly planned. Or maybe paying the bills, thinking about the rationalization of energy sources, gas, electricity, water, and stuff like that. 14 of them. But then, because we thought it can't be that this is so equal, we didn't believe this. We actually noticed that in this evaluation or assessment of we work the same, there is really a big difference in how women and men assess it. So men think, you know, that it's completely equal. We do it the same, and women think, no, we don't. I do it much more. So where things are, where is this, where is that, some kitchen utensils, some duct tape, scissors, the things that typically somebody always organizes and know where they're put, and then somebody else always looks for them. Sometimes even, you know, opening the drawer and looking at the thing, still asking, where is it? Okay, I can see that we can recognize some of our experience. So this was a very interesting finding for us, and then so many explanations we were discussing it. They, you know, maybe I don't see that this needs to be done. I just don't see it. I just, you know, automatically ask where it is without this awareness of somebody organizing. Of course, you would know more frequently where things are if you are the one always cleaning and assorting and organizing them. And there are 20 things like that. So this, out of 74, it's quite a few activities. Okay, so I will now come to, do I have maybe it's 10, maybe several more minutes, because we started for, okay, mental work is gendered. Gender inequality in the performance of mental work in the household, the vast majority is performed by women in Croatia, and there is a small number of male duties, but also we've seen a certain number of equally divided, and then there are gender differences in the perception of egalitarianism in the division of household labor, and then maybe some aspects like higher cost and long-term decision that get to be more equally decided, and then I guess all the conclusions that were already mentioned when we were going through the analysis of results. What I think is very important is to point out that omitting mental work could systematically bias the results and obscure key channels linking women's household responsibilities with health status, relationship satisfaction, and work job performance. It spills over. And that's why, and of course, traditional research, not, for example, time allocation is not adequate to measure this aspect of household labor. Okay, it's channel 1. Okay, I want to respect your time, and I know that attention spans, but okay, great, because this was my attempt to show you briefly the main results of this research, which was quantitative. And now, even though this qualitative, which is so much more interesting for me personally, and there are hundreds and hundreds of pages of transcripts now, and I guess it's very familiar to all of you, how lost one can feel at one point and overwhelmed by this amount of data. So I don't have the results. but I just chose some quotes, okay? This process, one of the reiterations, and we want to do the so-called reflexive thematic analysis. Brown and Clark are, of course, our most important reference in this methodology. Mirjana Adamović, Ksenija Klasnić, and me are doing coding of these materials. It's like 300 pages, independently and separately, because we want to compare, let's say, the reliability of the coding process with this intercoder. So each of us will do it independently, and then we'll compare the codes and somehow try to convince, hopefully, a good international impactful journal that this was the reliability testing. Even though, you know, sometimes when you, of course, deal with the topic for a longer period of time, you get this intuitive feeling when you read through the material, what is relevant and what should be coded, etc. Okay. One part of the coding process is guided by our questions, okay? But we also find it very important to be really theoretically flexible here and to develop, analyze, and interpret patterns across this big qualitative data set. Okay, so of course, what is mental labor and its forms and also its effects. So so for the last part today, some quotes. What is mental labor? It's volunteer work. It's all mental work. I'm thinking, even now, after I've had this conversation, I'll be thinking, oh, tomorrow I should read this and that because of that. That's my mental work, preparation for something. Then another answer, what will be eaten tomorrow? Or what will be done at home? So as not to accumulate something that will not be able to catch up. I mean, these are the little mental tasks that you have to constantly think about. Because if you miss them, nobody else will do them and there will be chaos. Mental work is constant. The person who takes care of the household, who keeps the three walls in the house, has constant mental work. Waking up in the middle of the night, working mentally. I plan for today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. There is no idle work. Before, I could dedicate myself much more to reading, watching movies, etc. And today, I have very little time left because I can't make it because I'm dealing with mental chores related to the household. And then, if opportunity arises to relax, I lack peace to think about anything at all and turn off my brain. So constant stress, you can't relax just by pushing the button because it somehow gets generalized in this unrest or complaining I don't have any more physical or mental strength. I'm sorry, I'm worn out, and quotes, quite a few quotes like that. Or the other part of answers, what is mental labor? I don't think it's work. Mental work, it's not work. It's something, you know, you do it along the way. You get something extra done along the way. Good thing you reminded me, I have to pick up my mother-in-law's medicine at the pharmacy. She said during the interview. I wouldn't say it's work, it's a part of life, something instinctive. Every mother should be ready to accept, listen, advise, somehow guide. I wouldn't say it's work. Maybe because it's unpaid, but also because it's not visible in this manifestation. Children, 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 so many quotes. That's very demanding. I chose this because I identify as a mother of a puberty boy. I complained to some of the colleagues already. With a reminding nag. I always remind my husband, so a big part of mental labor is always having this doctor's appointment, library deadline, all the things we need to remember. I always remind my husband of the doctor's appointment or the library due date. Well, he would like me not to do that because it's nagging, you know. He says something like, hey, you don't have to remind me of that. But then when he misses something, it's like, hey, why didn't you remind me? Or a typical, she's the one who wakes everyone up, the early bird is the mom. And, you know, she says, you're looking for a solution in your head. You change your approach, you search for options. I'm the one who wakes everyone up. it's already getting on my nerves. But they say, you wake up easily, you're already up, it's not difficult for you. That's how they comment it. In fact, no one asks you what you would like, but that's how things are. It becomes a habit, taken for granted. And for me, it's actually mental effort to put in to make everything work. Or I think this will be a separate paper. I will not go into theory now, but of course, this individualization process and a big sociological topic in itself and really complex and problematic. But you can often see answers that say, nobody makes me, I choose, it's my responsibility. My family would be happy if I, went out and for a walk and if I met my friends, but I don't know why I keep doing that. I have to balance it. So always bringing it to their own choice. They expect me this. I was sick for 3 days. I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of bed. But they kept asking me, how long? When are you getting out of bed? So everything was really in chaos. But then she said, but I told them like that. So it's my responsibility. And very often this chosen or imposed, they keep stressing. They really complain like terribly. They're completely emotionally, physically, and mentally exhausted, not sleeping well, not feeling well psychologically, and then end this discussion with, but that's my choice. I have to work on it. So somehow losing perspective that it's quite structural and it's necro-present. And then a lot of quotes about, as they say, society should maybe become aware of this. Several women had really interesting quotes like that. But nobody asks you at work. It's not, at work, it's not these women's topics are not really popular, not really polite. So we all have to do this, but you have, kids at home, and if they're young or they're, some situation, nobody cares. It's not something that society thinks about or addresses adequately. Only demographic politics. Okay. So this is important for me and others. You see, I try to work, but then my mind goes home, and I know my kids need to do something is happening, so it affects actually their job performance as well, or pointing out that they don't really have time for themselves. Or guilt is so amazing. Like, I can't believe I have these quotes that they actually appeared. I didn't have time to do it, and then I felt so guilty. It's not done, it's not performed. But it's only a feeling from inside of me, she said. So always, very frequently, we have this, it's about me, it's my choice, it's because of me, it's from inside me. Okay. I think this is like health, worry, burden, and sleep. These are the last several quotes I chose that I just found very interesting and wanted to share somehow to wrap this presentation of mine up. Health problems, it's very consequential when it comes to this. Because I have to stop doing this because I will further damage myself. There will be no end there. I will be of no use to my family or to my husband. It's a big burden, it's demanding. Before going to sleep, I lie down and think, somehow process all the events of the day. Then I sometimes wake up at night and think about it. Again, it definitely affects sleep, etc., etc. Okay, so this we expect it for late August, and hopefully our conference for European Sociological Association will see the results of this policy.